Welcome to another episode of Wild and Well. Today I am talking to Dr. Renee White, who has had many different careers, but at the moment, and for gosh, quite a while, she's been the founder of Australia's first doula village, Fill Your Cup. She's a postpartum doula. In a previous lifetime, she was a biochemist and she is a mother. So today, Renee and I are talking all about motherhood and preparing for the fourth trimester. So thank you so much, Renee, for being here. But before we get into this conversation, can you tell us one thing that you did today to take care of yourself?
That's a great question, actually. Very, very good. We are like kind of day three of school holidays here in Australia. And it was a bit of a rush this morning, let's just say. I've got a 7.5-year-old, and a few things had to be rearranged, as it does when you're in school holidays. And my husband and I both run our own businesses, so that's equally as challenging. And today I was feeling a little bit anxious this morning. So I put on my sound bowl soundtrack on my phone and popped it in my pocket. And everywhere I went around the house, I was just listening to my sound bowl soundtrack because I just needed to chill out for a second. I was like, everything will be okay. I just need to take some deep breaths. So, yes, that is my act of self-care this morning. I'm sure there'll be many more throughout the day.
That's beautiful. I'm going to steal that one. I've never thought to put that in like on my phone or listen to it. I'm
Yep.
always think you have to be in person, but you don't, right? It's a
No,
sound.
no. I will
Amazing.
say bit of a shout out to my sister who's introduced me to sound bowl, that whole phenomenon. And I'm a scientist, like I'm just kind of like, oh, this sounds a bit woo-woo. And because I turned up to her house and I was like super like stressed out, she was like, you need to sit down, you need to close your eyes, and I'm gonna put down like a sound bowl, like soundtrack for you, and you're not to open your eyes for 20 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, Jackie, come on, hurry up. We need to get out of here. She was like, sit down, and I was like, okay. Seriously, I was like in a vegetable state afterwards. I was like, I don't want to move now. So, yeah, it's great. I love it. I do it all the time. Before school pickup, if I'm having like a really rushed day and I just need to, like, how you just kind of like, okay, I'm not in my best state right now. I just need to chill out before we step into, the school activity pickup and everything. 10 minutes of sound bowl. If you're sitting in the car waiting for your kid, or I just like lie down on the couch quickly, sound bowl, get up, go. And it just changes your mindset. I love it.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm definitely stealing that. I'm starting that maybe tonight.
Do it. I love it.
So, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do and about Fill Your Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you kind of already said, I've had a few different previous lives, I call them, a few chapters in my life. So, started in a science degree, fell in love with biochemistry and immunology, and just kind of, I know it sounds really like crazy, but I just ended up in a PhD. I never wanted to do one because I hated writing at the time. And I thought the concept of writing a thesis really terrified me. But I just loved being in the lab so much. My supervisor kind of convinced me. He was like, you got the top like marks in honors, you really need to stay and do a PhD and you'll get a fellowship and everything. So it'll be easy. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that and I worked kind of in an area looking at, proteins in our blood and how it interacts with our immune system and things like that. And that was all fun and dandy. And I think I had really kind of rose tinted glasses at the time and thought, I'm going to be a scientist forever and it's going to be amazing. And I think actually one of my big kind of dreams was I'm going to be part of a team that cures HIV. That I think it was read out at my year 11 kind of introduction at high school and stuff, like, our dream goals. And serendipitously, I ended up in a HIV lab after I did my PhD. And it was a really interesting time because I was a biochemist and everyone was a virologist or an immunologist. And so to me, it was kind of the beginning of this beautiful networking and looking at different people's strengths and how we could come together individuals and really try and conquer this goal. And we were working with Big Pharma at the time on some drug discovery stuff. And it was a really, really exciting project. But the thing that kind of got me down, and this is why I talk about rose tinted glasses, is that we had to apply for funding every year. And if we didn't get funding, then we didn't have a job, which was really quite sad for me because I thought this was going to be my career. And at the time, was with my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and we kind of had all these hopes and dreams of buying a house and having a family. And we went to the bank and we were like, oh, hey, so we'd really love a mortgage loan. And they were like, yeah, about that. They were like, so you only have a 12-month contract as a scientist. I was like, yep. And they were like, yeah, no. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sad. So we kind of had to just pivot a little bit in terms of my career. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want all of this education to go to waste. What am I going to do with my life? And so I found a role, a patent attorney role, which you need a PhD in science to actually have. And so I pivoted to intellectual property. Which was really, really cool. So for all those playing at home, I don't know if, I don't expect everyone to know what a patent attorney is, but essentially it's the attorney who turns up to a lab and goes, wow, you discovered a cure for cancer. Okay, let's make sure that that's protected as an idea. And then we write the legal document which protects that idea for 20 years. So it was kind of this really beautiful interplay of I still get to flex my science muscles because I need to understand the technology and the discovery. I still get to work with scientists because I love doing that. But equally, I'm in a really good job that the bank evidently, smiles upon, and we can get a mortgage and hopefully live our life. So, um, I was in science for about 8 years. I was an attorney for 8 years, and during that time, I became a mum, which you'll know, Hillary, is like the biggest, hardest job of your life. So nothing ever prepares you for that. And I had always been, I guess, rewarded in life for doing things by myself, demonstrating that I was strong, independent, brave, courageous, and fierce. Um, and so when motherhood kind of rolled around, I took that same tactic and I was like, I can do all of this by myself. I'm totally cool. I've got this. I'm going to be the best mom ever. But the issue with that is, and like, it's beautiful in hindsight, is that mothering is actually not supposed to be done by yourself. Like if we look back at cultures, many thousands of years ago, and we kind of look at how mothers survived and thrived, it was always with the village around them. And I quickly learnt this because I suffered poorly during postpartum. And I joke, but it's kind of not a joke. I thought I had 2 batches of spaghetti bolognese in the freezer and thought, I've got this. I'm going to have all this time to do everything. Like, I honestly was one of those people, and I have to apologize to all mothers. I was one of those people who was like, what do mums do all day at home? Like what's going on? Because they must have like the most stocked fridge and freezer, and they must have the cleanest houses, and they must, they've got all this time up their sleeves because they're quote unquote not doing paid work, and you will know that that is not the reality. Like, if you've got a barnacle baby, good luck. Good luck. And I did. Um, but one of the things that I didn't realize at the time is that I had a previous history of anxiety, and I didn't realize that I was at a high risk for postpartum anxiety, um, and it just didn't even enter into the space of my brain. And that reared its ugly head pretty quickly in those postpartum days, sleep deprivation and just this lack of control, I think, of, oh my God, you know, why is my baby sleeping one day? Why is she not sleeping the next? And it was really, really challenging. And I completely spiraled, and it was not pleasant at all. And there was many sessions of seeing my psychologist, and needless to say, it was kind of that thing where I was like, holy crap, I thought I wanted two kids, but there's no way that I can have another child. I can't do this again. um and I guess fast forward when we clear from the fog of all of that, um, COVID hits in 2020, and my daughter's 3 at the time. And, my biological clock is tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And I'm thinking, maybe I could have another baby. Like, we're all at home and things could be a bit better. And I know what I know now. And I kind of wanted a redo. um, I wanted to see if, and this is the scientist in me. I wanted to see, oh, okay, I've got the results from the first experiment. What would happen if I knew now what I like learnt from that first time? And so I kind of wanted a redo. And as you do during COVID times, and we were in Melbourne, so, arguably the most locked down city in the world. So we didn't leave the house much. But we robustly discussed having a second child. And my husband was a hard no. And I was, why why are we not having another child? Like, I can do this. I wanted another shot because I felt like I had kind of failed the first time. um and he was like, hun, we just can't. Like, you couldn't see on the outside how difficult it was. He's like, I don't think you can do it again. I don't think we could do it again. He was running our business and he was traveling a lot. And he's just like, I don't want you to be put in that situation again. And we've got another child as well, who's a toddler, who we know is like high energy, like state, and like, lots of other things are happening in the world. So it's not happening. And again, lots of meetings with our psychologist to talk through that whole process. And essentially, we landed on, okay, we're not going to have another child. And at the time, I thought to myself, okay, if I can't have another baby, then, and it was a really difficult decision to come to, and a level of acceptance that, I'm fine with now. And sometimes it creeps in. But I thought to myself, that's so hard to like, that pill's so hard to swallow. And I never wanted another mum to ever have to go through that decision making again. And I didn't want another mum to have to, live through that postpartum experience like I did, feeling drowned and sleep deprived and eating toast and Tim Tams for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because you just don't have the mental bandwidth to do anything else. And I thought to myself, what is it that I can do with my life to make sure that that doesn't happen? And I found postpartum doula work. And I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So, in the middle of COVID, I quit my very stable 6-figure job and said, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to look after mums. And that's what I'm going to do because, you know, I just was like, nah, no other mum can do this. And so Fill Your Cup was born from essentially the depths of hell of my own postpartum, and yeah, not wanting any other mum to go through that.
Yeah, wow. It's so common that our mess becomes our message. There's that
Yeah.
saying out there, and it's similar for me. I mean, my experience was different, but ultimately it was similar in many ways, and it's really informed the work that I do as well. And it's really
Mm,
pivoted. I'm still working in psychology and therapy, but it's really pivoted who I'm working with specifically. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating,
Absolutely.
yeah, to hear
Mm.
people's journeys. And I really appreciate you being so open with talking about that decision making about having another or not. And that, because that I
Mm,
think is something that is so common in our society because people may want more, but based on their experience with the first one or financial experiences or limitations, support, so many different things, age, there's so many factors that can get in the way that we don't necessarily get to choose what we ideally would like. And that's really
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's difficult, with my daughter she would just be so over the moon if she had a sibling. Like she asks, I mean, it's tapered off now because she understands because I've been able to speak to her about it now that she's 7. But like, for a very long time, she's always like, Mom, why can't I have a brother or sister? Can't you have another baby? And like I am really honest with her and I just say to her, look, hun, it's really difficult having a baby. Like you don't sleep a lot. And I tell her I wouldn't be the best mum that I could be if I had another child. And I want to be the best person for you. Um, and I want this to be a positive experience. And I don't think it would be if we had another, child in our family. So there's that on the serious note. And then also I just buy her cats. Like I'm like, here, have another cat. Have another. We got 2 cats and a dog. So I'm just like, you're fine. But actually, I will say, Hillary, I mentioned that we were in Melbourne. And yes, COVID was one of the like key decision makers of us, picking up all of our house and contents and moving to Tasmania. But one of the really defining features was actually because we have 2 families here that are our bestest friends, and we travel the world together, and they have got kids. And, my sister doesn't have children, so she doesn't have a direct kind of cousin in Melbourne, but she's got kids here in Tasmania who are around her age. She's kind of, in the middle of them all, and and we hang out a lot, and so they're almost like her pseudo siblings, and we co-parent together for so many different situations. At least 2 of our husbands travel a lot, so when they're out of town, we're like on the chat straight away, right? Co-parenting day, meet you at the park or come over, like we cook meals together, like the kids hang out. That's how I survive and thrive now, because whilst we could probably, kind of do that in Melbourne, we just didn't have the infrastructure there. So yeah, that was actually one of the key points to us moving state. Yeah.
Yeah, that co-parenting is so necessary, isn't it? And if you
Yeah.
don't have it, it's something that mothers deeply crave more than probably anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Like I as I said, we travel the world with these people. Like it's just like we go on holidays all the time together. And last year I went to like one of my favorite places, Hong Kong. And it was just my husband and I, he was there for work, and my daughter was there. And like, I don't want to sound like a crap mum because I love my daughter, but we were there for a week and it was just the 2 of us, and it was too much intense time and we didn't enjoy ourselves. And it was one of those pivotal moments where I was like, oh my God, we can't travel for extended periods of time without other kids around. Like it's not going to work. She can't tap out with a kid. I can't tap out with a parent. And I made a decision then and there that I was like, no, we can't do this. If it's anything over 3 days, we're not doing it unless there's another family involved, because there was a typhoon, so we were kind of in the hotel for a lot of the time. And yeah, so we were just like, no, it's not going to work. So co-parenting all the way for me.
Yeah, it's how our ancestors ideally, like when we think about them in that idealized way, that's how they did it,
Yeah,
right? They didn't do it by themselves, whether they were with other women in the village or it was intergenerationally
yeah.
working together. People weren't siloed in their homes, raising their 1 or 2 or however many kids they had all by themselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, how do we prepare for a good postpartum and a good entry into motherhood? Like, because based on your experience, you're wanting and you are supporting so many mothers to have a different
Mm.
experience. What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So, um, I've got a lot of hindsight, as I said, behind me, but also, I've been a doula for this, 5 years now, and we've built Fill Your Cup up to, I think we've got 17 doulas now across Australia, which is amazing. And, within that doula collective, we've shared insights and knowledge, and pretty much all of us are mums. So we've been able to create such an amazing, I guess, database of resources. And there's some really common themes that we've seen across all of that. And this is something that we always do with our families. We do what's called a postpartum planning session. So it's kind of like, right, this is the game plan for how we're going to set you up for the best postpartum you can possibly have. So I'd probably say, and I think because I'm a complete science nut, I'm totally into pregnancy and postpartum nutrition. So a lot of our clients come to us because of the food that we create for them. So the entire menu is curated by myself as a biochemist. There's a reason why we pair specific ingredients with one another to get more bang for your buck. High iron needs to go with high vitamin C, things like that. So we always say to prep your fridge and freezer like a doomsdayer. So, like, anticipate a zombie apocalypse. You cannot leave the house for 2 weeks. You need enough meals and snacks in your fridge and freezer ready to go. But you want those meals to be, as I said, I snacked on toast and Tim Tams, which can sustain you for probably a couple of days. But really, it's not, it's not ideal, right? And so you want to be thinking about really nourishing food that is going to replete all of those lost micronutrients that we have, given to our babies during pregnancy and that we've kind of lost through the energy of labor and birth. So you want to be thinking about things that are high in iron, high in choline, high in DHAs, vitamin C, B12. All of those things are really great for energy and also tissue repair and just kind of like choline and DHAs are great for postpartum depression, mitigating against that. So there's research behind that. You want to be thinking about easily digestible foods. So soupy stuff, ramens, broths, anything with lots of hydration, because we all know that, especially in those first few days post birth, things are a bit difficult to move at the station, if you know what I mean. So you want to be thinking about that. So yeah, fill your fridge and freezer like a doomsdayer. In preparation, I would, and this is one of the reasons why we do the postpartum planning session, we only give one copy of that out per couple. And I say to them, because I figuratively and literally want you on the same page. Like, I want all the questions and answers on the same page. So, communication is one of the biggest things that I see couples go from anxious to I've totally got this. Because when you talk about things, and you will know this with your background, Hillary, communication, it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Or it's this preconceived thought. And when I'm talking about communication, I'm thinking things like boundaries, visitors, um, what's the mental load of the household going to look like? Who's doing the laundry? Have we got someone to walk the dog? Who's going to take your toddler to childcare? Like, what are the contingencies around that? And so, actually writing it down and talking to your partner about it just just is so much easier for everyone. Like, oh yeah, we spoke about that. That's what we're going to do. So, communication is key. Um, I always get people to write down your village, like who is in your village, who is going to, let's just say, and I see this all the time, is that, typically partners get some time off work, non-birthing partners, time off work, but then eventually they've got to go back. they've got to go back to work. So I see from the partner the guilt of having to leave the house, but then I also see resentment from, the birthing parent of like, oh my goodness, they get to leave. They get to leave the house without a barnacle baby. And, like me, I was just like leaking milk everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to like feed myself, feed the baby, all the things. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So I always get families to write down the name and number of certain people in their inner circle where it's like, if you've had a really rough day and you just need someone to come over and have a cup of tea, who would you call? If you want like judgmental, unsolicited advice, but like, really evidence based stuff, who would you call? And so, a couple of different scenarios with those. And what I always recommend is that the partner, if you're walking out that door and you know that last night's been crap and that you've got a busy day at work and you do have time to check in with your partner, but it might not be enough, you text or call that person that you've both agreed upon. And then you have them come to the house or you have them send, your partner a gorgeous voice message or something like that, something where there's connection. You want connection with mama at home, and that's really, really important. So there's the kind of village building. And then this is a tough one because I know that I at the time was like, there's no way in hell I've got time to do this. But self-care, Hillary, is so important. And there is science behind this. So there was an amazing research study done in Victoria in Australia, and they followed mums in the first 6 months postpartum. And what they showed was that mothers who took 30 minutes per week for self care were 3 times less likely to develop postnatal depressive symptoms. Now, if Big Pharma could bottle that, they would. Okay, 100%. They absolutely would. And like I scoffed a little bit at the research study because their version of self care and time for self was like mum taking herself to the grocery shops by herself and getting groceries for the family. Which, look, if that's all you can like get, I'm all praise to you. Okay. Like that's totally fine. But equally, it doesn't need to be something bougie like taking yourself off to a day spa for like 8 hours and paying like $1,500 for a spa massage and, reflexology and whatever. It can be as simple as, and this is another thing that I kind of get mums to do to write down, is write down something that takes 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of self care. Write those down. You put it on the fridge, you put it next to your bedside table, you put it on your feeding station, whatever it is. You need to be able to visualize that. Because in an ideal world, you want to be making sure that you do one of those activities during the day. Because that 30 minutes from the study didn't need to be 30 minutes all together. It could span 30 minutes over a week, which I know in hindsight is like not a lot of time in like, layman's terms. But to a mum with a barnacle baby, 30 minutes over a whole week is it's like a decade, like in normal time, you know what I mean? So it could be as easy as putting on your headphones and listening to your favorite song. It could be taking your shoes off, walking out into the garden, close your eyes, feel the grass, feel the earth, whatever it is. It could be making yourself a cup of tea, drinking it hot, warm, probably not cold unless that's totally your jam. But simple activities like that, as I said, it doesn't need to be anything bougie. So those are probably my kind of, top 5 things. I think that's 5 of how to get ready for postpartum.
I wish that I did that planning ahead of time, and I'm so
Oh, don't we
grateful.
all?
But I'm so grateful that you and the doulas that work at Fill Your Cup are helping moms do this because it's doable to plan
Yeah.
that and do that ahead of time. But often we don't go into it thinking about what we need to do because we haven't experienced it before.
Absolutely. And it's like without having like a bit of a shameless plug, this is actually one of the reasons why we offer this as a standalone kind of service because we noticed that, this was just kind of like part and parcel. It was part of all of our doula services. And we noticed this huge shift in people's just like attitudes to birth and postpartum because they were coming in like really buzzing, like particularly first time, parents who were just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like everyone's like, have I got enough onesies? I've got the right nappies. Da, da, da. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. You've got the hospital bag checklist. But what about you and your partner? Like, what does that look like? And everyone was just like, oh God, I don't know. We haven't even thought about that. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, that is 100% why we offer that as a standalone. And it's like we do it for all over the world as well. So it's like a virtual thing that we do online and it's become very a personalized service. Like there's a full questionnaire. And so we actually map it out specifically for you and your family. Yeah.
That's incredible because it is like just going through those. If somebody's listening, you could go through and do this work, but to work with somebody who
Yeah.
really understands what postpartum is like,
Mm.
that's a next level. And you're going to get
Yeah.
into more detail around what those boundaries look like. What do you need to be focusing on with your communication? All of the things.
Yes. Yeah, we've got some awesome like kind of templated stuff for communication letters that we send to friends and family. That like, I mean, I've kind of drafted them. That's my lawyer background as well. I'm just like, these are really friendly but firm communications that you can, will craft specifically for you and your family. But yeah, our families love them because they're like, oh my God, I just don't know what to say to these people, but I don't want them to come to the hospital or whatever it is. So yeah, it's great.
No, that's brilliant. Clear communication, whoever you're talking to, is just
Yeah.
so helpful, whether it's your partner or your mother-in-law or a colleague. It's just so useful.
Yeah.
And I like how you were talking about how our partners can support us postpartum with helping to ensure that other people are there. Like, so they're sending
Hmm.
that message and saying, hey, can you come and support like the new mom if I can't be around? But how do we actually build that village for people who don't have it? Because it's great if you have it and then you can put that into practice of intentionally getting those people to support you. But there are a lot of moms that feel isolated and don't
Hmm.
feel like they have a village. Do you have any strategies or ideas of how we can build this either during pregnancy so we're ready postpartum or build it during postpartum?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really big one that comes up all the time. And I think I I feel like I'm like the poster child for that because we moved suburbs when I was like 33 weeks pregnant. So I turned up and I was like, I don't know where the local cafe is. I don't know where the mums hang out. Like I have no idea about whatever. And my husband was always like, why don't you just go for a walk? And I was like, are you having a laugh? Like, have you seen me? I'm the size of a whale. I can hardly make it a block, without needing to go into a wee. So I think in terms of finding your village, there's a couple of things that I think we need to kind of bring into context. And I always think about because I'm here in Australia, you've got rural mamas who like literally don't have a lot of people around them. So that is like, I kind of think one group. And then you've got mums in like suburbia who, might have a more kind of more capacity to have the local parks and the local cafes and things like that. I think when you're looking at rural mamas, you're probably thinking more online groups to make connections with people. I know here in Australia, there's an amazing organization called Motherland, and it is essentially all about rural mamas connecting with one another and allied healthcare professionals, and everything's online. And it's this gorgeous, like, community of women on there, which is fantastic. Um, and then I see like suburbia mums like myself, where you turn up 33 weeks pregnant and go, hello, where is everyone? Like, what's going on? Um, and so, what I'll say is that I find that most things are easier done during pregnancy because you are less tired, you're probably less hormonal. And so I always advocate for flexing those muscles, and making friends, um, during pregnancy because it becomes a hell of a lot easier later. I'm not sure about in Canada and like the rest of the world, but here in Australia, we get put into mothers groups. So, our maternal child health nurse will help facilitate that. And we kind of put into groups of like, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other women. But, for some people, like I was very lucky. I was put into a group when I was like, I think like 5 weeks postpartum, whereas some people don't get into a group till like about 3 months postpartum. So, mothers groups are great if you don't get to one face to face. You know, I'm going to say it. Sometimes Facebook groups are great for that. There are definitely, I know, a couple of specific apps that are coming out soon, which are targeted for mums and, that kind of virtual mothers group thing. But I think one of the overarching statements that I'll make is that typically, and it's a broad brush, but we find that a lot of mums find it difficult to maybe ask for help and to make those connections. And because you're an adult now, like you're not a school kid and you're like, oh God, how do I make friends again? Like, what does that look like? So I'm talking from a perspective of like myself. You turn up and you know no one in your suburb. And so what I find is that, like, very similar to myself, I really struggled to ask for help and to make those connections because I thought I could do it all by myself, because I'd always been rewarded like that. And so what I always talk to families about is taking time to reflect on the imprint that we have on our own lives. What was modeled to us as a child? My mum was the martyr mum. Everyone else comes first. She would happily put herself last with everything. And so that's what I had modeled to me as the good mum. That's what a good mum does. A good mum doesn't ask for help and is self-sacrificing and at the cost of everything. And so that's what I started to model early days. And we all know how that ended up not well. And so you kind of take time to reflect on what's the imprint that you have on your own life. And then maybe do a little bit of work during pregnancy and go, okay, well, that's what was modeled to me, but how do I want it? Like, am I ready to flick the switch on that? Like, what does that look like? And, start reaching out to people on, Facebook mums groups and things. I will say though, just be careful on there. They're great for connection, but maybe not always advice. I always say don't try and get your advice from a reel or anything unless it's evidence based and stuff like that. But yes, start building those connections with other mums because we know from another research study that there's kind of 4 pillars to mums thriving. The first is reliable and realistic information. The second one is emotional and physical support. The third one is that psychological kind of support, and the fourth one, sharing experiences with other mothers. That was a pillar in and of itself. And so we do crave that. We do need that with those people around us. So if you can't get it face to face, go online. Be careful, as it is with face to face. Like, some people might not be your jam. Like, I turned up to my mother's group, there was 8 people, and I probably really connected with 2, maybe 3, where we would kind of typically, okay, let's meet up at the park or let's go for a walk with the kids in the pram or whatever. And that's okay. I think that also needs to be said. You don't need to connect with every single person. And that's totally, totally fine.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And I really love how you have brought up that what we consider like a good mom, like what your experience of
Mm.
that was. And I think it's so, so common. I'm actually working on my third book right now about motherhood, and I was editing a chapter about this today and how we I don't want to speak for everybody, but in our society, we do value that individualism so much and doing it
Yeah.
on our own. And we're rewarded for that, like you've said. And
Yeah.
up until motherhood, you were. And it can be really hard to then start asking for help and not see that as a sign of weakness and start to
Yes.
actually hone that skill and realize that it's a strength. Is that something that you or the other doulas actively work through with mums?
Absolutely. We actually have mums who contact us and specifically say, I need a doula because I'm so bad at asking for help that I need someone to almost, and I don't know how else to phrase this, but like not to put them in their place, but almost to remind them. It's that constant person who's reminding you that it's okay to ask for help. And typically our doulas visit our mums every week. And so it's that opportunity for them to have a person who is non-judgmental, who's not friends and family, who's very impartial, and it actually helps that they're paying them as well, we find, um, to say, oh, can you please put some laundry on? Or can you please help me reorganize, the baby's clothes because they've grown and so we need to kind of reshuffle the sizing, and or can you hold my baby? I'm just going to go have a shower. Like, it's those micro moments of flexing that muscle of like, I need to ask for help, which then gives them that confidence and empowerment to do that in their broader circles. And so, yes, we actively have those people come to us and say, I need this person in my life to let me know that it's okay for me to do that. So I can practice with them and I can falter and I'm not going to be judged. And then I can take that and move on and model that with the people around me.
That's incredible. That
Mm.
it's a skill, right? Like
Yeah,
how
oh,
they're practicing
absolutely.
that.
Yep.
That's
I
so
tell that
good.
to people all the time. I say it's like going to the gym. You want to get really good at running, you get on the treadmill or you run outside. You want to be able to squat, your body weight. What do? You practice it. You don't just turn up and do it. It's too hard. You will fail. 100%. You're setting yourself up for a fail. But if you can flex those muscles and if you can practice and also have the people around you, I think that's a really big thing that people underestimate. If you want to achieve anything in life, whether it be business, personal, whatever it is, you need that village around you. You need that positive, circle of people around you telling you it's okay to fail, but we're right here and we're going to build that confidence. I'm going to empower you with that decision making. And when you have that, boy, oh boy, like so I see every single message from every single mum come through on my phone when they're like, talking to doulas. It like I just sit in my office sometimes and I cry because I'm just like, I see the progression of a woman who I first spoke to who in pregnancy, who's like so anxious about becoming a mum and being the best mum that she possibly can be. And those new days where it's like she's so tired and she's sore. And then by the end of like our 6-10 week program, she is just like shining. Like she's like, so thankful. I've got this. I'm so lucky to have this doula, but I feel ready to say goodbye as well. And that's our job, to actually put ourselves out of a job. That's the number one thing that we do.
Do you think that there's any women that wouldn't benefit from having a postpartum doula? Like to me, it seems like everybody could. But are there certain people that you don't think need it?
I would say that's a great question. I think I would take that two ways. The first one is postpartum doulas are not for everyone. And I think for people who are not ready to accept help, I think it would be actually detrimental for someone to be in their space and to be trying to help them. I think that would cause too much anxiety. And we see this, like, for example, if someone buys a gift voucher on the website, and we say this on the page and in all our FAQs and stuff, it's a great idea to buy a gift voucher for your best friend or your sister or whatever it is. But we always, please, please, please speak to them about it first, because there's nothing worse than having someone who you've never met before, who you don't have a relationship with, step into your house and you are in this very vulnerable state with a new baby, and you are in mama bear mode as well, by the way. Like, your hardwiring for your brain is like protect mode. That's a very detrimental kind of relationship there. Nothing positive is going to be achieved if they don't want you there. So that's kind of like that group. And the only other group that I would say is like, this is like dream world kind of stuff. Like, if you are a mum who, and I'm thinking like tight knit community, like I'm almost thinking like commune kind of community, like everyone is living together and like everyone is helping one another cook, and you're all eating together and you're all raising children together, and you've got um like a well-known lactation consultant or a pelvic floor physiotherapist and midwife. Like, you've got the dream team. Like, if you had that, then I'd be like, yeah, you don't need a postpartum doula, because you've got postpartum doulas in all of the women around you, right? So they're all playing the role. They just don't necessarily have the qualification. So they're probably your only scenarios where I would say no. Everyone else in between, hell yes. Like, just do it. Just invest in it. Like, it will pay dividends 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't imagine there's too many people in that second group, unfortunately.
No, but God, I wish I had that.
This might be like a big question, but if you could revolutionize like, postpartum care, what are some key changes that you would make to what's currently available to women?
Yeah. So here in Australia, and I'm pretty sure it would, like, the ripple effect would be seen across the world. We know that continuity of care is the gold standard. And for all those playing at home, if you don't know what continuity of care, that phrase actually means, it is essentially the concept that you have the same person, maybe one or two people, through your entire pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. And we know that that's the gold standard because a ton of research has been done on that. And it's verified that that is the gold standard. Here in Australia, I would say, and you'll have to fact check me, Hillary, but I'm going to throw a number out there and say I think only 18% of women here in Australia have access to continuity of care. But that typically stops. The continuity of care is through pregnancy and birth. And there's a trickling, I'm going to say, of postpartum, but nothing huge in the postpartum period. There's nothing that really goes from A to B. In an ideal world, if I was to revolutionize postpartum care, I'll tell you a story. So, my uncle, a couple of years ago, he had to get a double knee reconstruction. And he had all of these specialist appointments to like work out what was wrong, what they had to do, all these scans. Saw the same person every time. Went in to hospital, got the double knee reconstruction, had the surgery, was in hospital for, 5 days. Then they moved him to a rehabilitation facility for like 2 or 3 weeks. He had all of his meals taken care of. He didn't have to lift a finger. Every day it was coordinated that someone would come in. It was a physio. They had everything mapped out for him. He didn't have to think. Like, bang, everything just was coordinated, set, done. He just had to literally like move his legs and listen to whatever someone told him to. Now, that's for a double knee reconstruction. Imagine if we did that for mothers. Imagine if we could have, those 5 days in hospital where it doesn't matter what we're recovering from, whether it's a vaginal birth, a C-section, emergency, or elective. Imagine if we could stay in the care of, you know, not necessarily a hospital, but kind of like a postpartum recovery center, hotel. We've seen them. We see them pop up all the time. They've started here in Australia as well. Imagine if we had that. Imagine if we had access to, and this is another thing that I'm really quite strong about, is prevention is better than treatment. So imagine if we had relationships already built during pregnancy for a lactation consultant. Whether you choose to breastfeed or not, I think it's important to have that access. A pelvic floor physio. In France, it's subsidized, and I think they get like, 4, 5, 6 sessions with a pelvic floor physio after the birth of their baby. Imagine if they had access to a birth and postpartum doula, a midwife or obstetrician, depending on which way you wanted to go, and also a counselor or psychologist. So you're hitting every single one of those needs, feeding, pelvic floor, emotional support through a doula, midwife, you've got that medical kind of, and then counselor, psychologist, you've got that mental thing. So if we go back to that research, which tells us that women need 4 pillars to thrive in postpartum, you are knocking the head on every single one of them. Imagine if that was the case. Imagine if our system actually looked at the research and said, oh, that's actually what we should be doing. Because here in Australia, we have, statistics that tell us that 1 in 5 women suffer from postpartum depression and or anxiety. That is the reported stuff on black and white pieces of paper, and I can tell you that it is a far greater number. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably closer to 1 in 2, if not 1 in 3. And so imagine if we had those teams, and it comes back to this continuity of care. It comes back to understanding that women need trusted people around her. She needs that village. She needs to feel safe. She needs that realistic and reliable information, because what happens to our brains as someone who is a very anxious person, if you don't know the answer to something, if we're striving to be the best mum, the good mum, and we don't know the answer, we fill the gaps, right? We end up filling the gaps with stuff and we start catastrophizing. And that's where we get this anxiety coming in, right? Imagine if we had access to a team where we could just text and be like, hey, I really love to know, like, what do I need to do to prep? Because I really want to breastfeed, but like, what are those first 4 hours going to look like? How do I prepare for that? Bang, 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 bang. It's done. Imagine if we had that. So that's my dream state. If I could, make decisions for the world, then that's what I'd be doing. But I will say that's exactly what we do at Fill Your Cup. So when a family comes to us, we have an amazing network of all of those people that I've listed off. And so we connect those families with those individuals. And we say to them, if you want to breastfeed, to me, it's like dropping someone and saying, you're going to run the New York City Marathon today. And they're like, what? And it's like, oh, you didn't prepare? Okay, off you go. Put your runners on, off you go. And it's like, hold on a minute. I can't do this. Like, you just dropped me in here. But imagine if I told you 6 months before, okay, in 6 months, you're going to run the New York City Marathon. And they're like, okay, what do I need to do to prepare for that? I probably need to work out what equipment I need. What runners do I need? What nutrition do I need? What do I need to be eating to fuel myself for this race in lead up, in training, during the actual marathon? Do I need a running buddy? Do I need a coach? Like, what does that look like? What's the village that I need around me to succeed at this? And the New York City Marathon is one day. And we're saying to our mums, oh, you want to breastfeed for like 3, 6, 12, 18 months, but we expect them to turn up and just do it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? So, building these relationships with lactation consultants, giving our families education around what those first few hours look like. Here's some troubleshooting tips, things like that. That's what we should be setting up for our mums instead of setting them up for a fail. So that's exactly what we do here at Fill Your Cup.
Yeah, all moms need that. And you are starting that change, right? Because you're doing it with the moms that you work with and that the other doulas at Fill Your Cup work with. So that's where the change starts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where can people find you and find out more about Fill Your Cup?
So everyone we typically hang out on Instagram. That's my favorite. I'm not a TikToker, which it terrifies me, that platform. So we're at Instagram at fill your cup, or one word underscore. Or you could jump over to our website, ifillyourcup.com. And people can look at all of our services on there in Australia. But we also, as I said, if people are interested in those postpartum planning sessions, we do those worldwide. So that's just under our planning section on the website.
Amazing. And was there anything that you wanted to say here that you think is really important for mums or mums to be to know that we didn't talk about or that I didn't ask?
Um, I think there's a couple of things that I always tell parents um is that it's okay to change your mind with whatever it is that you're doing in parenthood. If you're someone who thinks that, the decision has been made and therefore, that's what we're doing, and then you find ta-da, your baby's human and they're changing. And so therefore your decisions might be changing as well. It's okay to change your mind. And I would just, don't worry if you think there's going to be judgment or like comments or whatever it is. You're allowed to change your mind a million times over. It's your parenting journey, it's your family, and you can do whatever you like, obviously, as long as everyone's safe. But the other thing I'll say is it's absolutely 100% okay to also put yourself first. And you should. You really should. And if you're finding it really difficult to do that, then communicate with your partner or someone close to you. And if you find it difficult to have conversations, like verbal conversations, which I do, I write it down. So I either text my husband or I write him a note and I will leave it on his phone, like, a post-it note or something like that. But text them, talk to them, whatever communication avenue it is. But it is okay to put yourself first and chat to them about it, because more often or not, people around you really want to help you. You just need to kind of take that first step and ask for it.
Yeah, we're not mind readers and neither are our
No.
partners.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the work that you do and the change that you're bringing to postpartum and the ripple effect that that has on the rest of those moms' lives and those children's lives. And your time here. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Hillary. I appreciate it.